And I'm excited to have Gordon Mote with me on my show today. How you doing, Gordon?
I'm doing very well, Bobby. Thanks for having me on.
Man, it's an honor to have you. You're a great vocalist and a great keyboardist, and I've been following you around, especially since you've been doing a lot of the Gaither things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's hard to believe that I've been gone or off that tour uh, now longer than I was on it.
Is
Uh,
that right?
yeah, because I left in 2012, but I still see them a lot because I'm, producing their albums now. We're working on the third one. People say, I can't believe that you're already working on something new. And the truth of the matter is, the Good Things Take Time album came out in July of 2019. And a week after it came out, we were in the studio working on this one.
Uh-huh.
Bill has incredible energy. He's 84 now,
Wow.
but we would all love to have the zeal and energy that he has at 84.
I'm telling you, man.
He's an amazing man and a great mentor and a great, just somebody you can learn so much from. And I'm grateful to be co-producing with him. And uh, this this version of the vocal band is vocally just they hit it out of the park every time. Reggie Smith, Wes Hampton, Adam Crabb, Todd Suttles, and Bill.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, if I can think it, they can do it.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty amazing thing because you're not limited in any way with this group, and it makes me look like a hero, you know. But
Well,
I've been doing a lot of producing lately, and I'm grateful to be working with Gaither Vocal Band. But people say, always wonder about that. Why did you leave, and why did you come off the road with them? I'm still doing my own concert dates. It was just time, for another season. Nobody was mad at each other. There wasn't a riff it just was time to do something else. And I
yeah.
assure you, Bill and I talk almost every day.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and
You know,
yeah.
Gordon, I've been in the music business, I guess you could say professionally, for 38 years now, and I have met gobs of people in Christian music, country music, rock music, all kinds, but I have yet to meet Bill Gaither.
No kidding.
I have
Wow.
never met him face to face. No.
We were doing, I remember we were doing a Josh Turner record several years back, and Bill came by the studio. I don't even remember why, but I had to give him something. I had to give him a hard drive or something. I don't remember, but I just remember Josh and Frank Rogers, his producer at the time, all these incredible musicians. Like when Bill walked in, it shut the whole thing down. Like everybody wanted to meet him and get their picture made with him.
That's
And
pretty
so
awesome.
that just tells you what respect he has in the business, in the music business, how people, so many people in all kinds of music, whether you're talking about pop, country, whatever,
Yeah.
they grew up listening to gospel music and maybe in many cases grew up singing and playing in church. And so they all have a love, brings back memories when they hear an old Gaither Trio song or a Gaither
Oh,
Vocal
yeah.
Band song from the early 80s
Right.
or whatever. And of course, we just lost Gary McSpadden,
Right.
which he was, I always called him the ambassador because he was always so kind,
Yeah.
just a sweet spirit and was incredible vocalist. We did one of those reunion things about a year ago, and he still sang amazing.
Yeah.
And
He was great. The
Yeah, but I can't
last,
believe you hadn't met Bill. You got to
no, I
meet him
haven't. You need to
sometime.
hook me up, man.
Oh man.
Speaking of Gary McSpadden, the last bus that Mid South had before we disbanded, we bought from Gary McSpadden.
Oh my goodness.
It was a
Well,
1975 GM. Let's see, not a GMC, but what they
an
called.
E.
I can't remember what it was called, but
Was it an Eagle? One of the old
No, it
Eagles?
was an MCI. That's what MC7.
MCI, sure, yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what Lee
1975
Greenwood
MC.
had. He had two MCIs when I was touring with Lee back in the early '90s.
Yeah,
Thunder and Lightning, and they were
that may
both
have been the
MCI.
same one. It may have been the same
Well,
one that we got
you
from him.
never know, but
Yeah,
there
because
were
it
a
was
lot of
like
them out there running around.
it was probably 94, end of 94 when we got it from him, something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's probably the same bus.
You never know.
That's pretty cool. Well, we want to talk about you, man, and the way I've been doing everybody that I've been interviewing. We just go way back to the beginning, and you could tell everybody where you were born and what your influences were that made you want to be a musician, a singer, want to get in the music business, and just how you came to start playing piano and just kind of go from there.
Well, I was born in Alabama, born in Gadsden, and I started playing the piano when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And that's not normal.
Right.
But God just was so gracious to me. My brother and I were both born blind, but he gave me a gift for music, and my brother has many gifts as well. He is works for a computer software company. He was in radio for a very long time and still does some of that for Learfield IMG College.
Hmm.
So he's just a really, really intelligent guy. But I got the gift of music, started playing piano at 3, just a miracle from God.
Yeah.
The very first song I played was Jesus Loves Me.
Wow.
And I've been playing ever since, trying to get better with each passing day. My brother and I were part of a group of blind students who were some of the very first in the United States to mainstream into the public school system. And that happened in 1977. So that was, we were pioneers in that way. Because of that, school was maybe a little more difficult for us because we didn't have Braille books for all of our subjects. Even if we did have a Braille book, it was normally not the same edition that the other children had. And a lot of times we had our books on cassette tapes back in those days. So it got really hard to find the exact page you were supposed to be reading
Yeah.
on a cassette. Yeah, that was a challenge. But through all those challenges, I feel like, challenges of any kind build character. And so I feel like God used all of those things to help me be the man that I am today, a man who I want to, be an example for my children, a good work ethic, working really, really hard, not quitting. And, it helped me with my memorization skills, which I need because being in the recording studio so much and everybody else has charts that they can read.
Well,
For
I
the
was going to
song.
ask you,
Yeah.
I'm amazed because, Pig Robbins, he's been doing studio work for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed at how people probably want to know, how do you, like when you go in the studio, you don't just, most of the guys that are in there, they have a chart
Yeah.
that they read. It's the Nashville number system in most
That's right.
cases.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody reads that chart. They listen to a demo of the song, and then they write a chart, or it's already written for them. And then they go in there and they start playing the song. Well, how does somebody like you that can't see the chart, how do you sit down there and just start playing the song? I mean, that quick?
Well, normally the artist, producer, songwriter, whatever kind of session it is, normally they will play the song for us once,
Right.
maybe twice. But normally they'll play us a work tape, maybe a guitar vocal or, piano vocal, or the artist will have his guitar in there and play us a song. And so I have to hear it the first time and memorize it while the guys are looking at their charts. And
how do you do it that quick?
Well, it's just a gift. I mean,
I
it
guess
truly
so.
is. It's a God-given gift.
Yeah.
And so many of the times that we record, it is the artist just standing there playing his guitar live for us,
Yeah.
kind of singing us a song. And then, of course, we don't just do it exactly as he did it. We create something. The
Right.
producer has a roadmap but we use our creative juices and make it something that is commercial and has a hook or is worthy of the radio. We try to make it stand out, get above the noise.
Yeah.
um, One of my fondest memories of listening to an artist play a song on his guitar was the night we cut the Alan Jackson song, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?
Yeah.
And that ended up being the first #1 secular song that I was ever on. But he just stood there in the studio and was like, I don't know if it's any good. Denise wanted me to play it for y'all and see if y'all thought it's worth doing. And it was just an amazing moment, to be honest with you. One of those moments that you knew you would always remember. And one of those moments you knew you were creating something special. And I've had a few of those moments in my career that really stand out. And that's definitely one of them, but it truly is a gift. I have a funny story about that.
Let's hear it, man.
We were cutting a Faith Hill song, and I don't remember what it was, but it's been some years back. I remember it was when the Titans were pretty good. And it was a Monday morning. Do remember that because we were all standing there talking about the Titans. And the Air McNair days where he would always bring them back, and somehow he'd been beat up the whole game, but he would come out, in the fourth quarter and lead them on a game-winning drive. And you had Frank White making those great catches, and Eddie George just running, making his own hole sometimes, and Derek Mason, and those are good teams, but. I remember we were just standing there, a bunch of us were talking about whatever game was last night, and they were playing the demo. Well, I was listening, but we were talking too. They were looking at their chart, kind of listening to the demo. I was listening, and it was Faith was in there with us, but I wasn't thinking about that because I hadn't worked for her very much, but at that time, I have since that time, but I just wasn't thinking, we were just doing what we do. And we went in, it was a big ballad, and we went in, we cut it. It was great. I mean, she sang great. She sang a great scratch vocal. Man, the track was just killer. And I remember coming back in the studio and standing there listening to what we had done. And there was still, I think, a guitar player maybe doing an overdub or something, maybe some power chords or something.
Uh-huh.
And Faith comes up to me and she hugs me and she says, that was amazing. That intro you came up with was so great. And man, you guys just took it and made it something special. But she said, I was really mad at you at first. And I said, oh my gosh, you were? I couldn't think of anything that I, certainly never want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah. She said, the demo was playing and I thought, they're just talking and he's talking about football and he's not paying any attention to my demo. And it's a piano driven song. It's a big ballad and he's going to go out there and not know it. And we're going to have to, and she said, and you went out there and played flawlessly. And I just don't understand how you do it. And she said, I wish that I could just hear a song and do that. Well, I don't know where this came from. I didn't think about my response, but I said, well, I wish I could drive. And that's been a story that's gotten around Nashville. That's kind of a legendary story.
Oh, man,
I don't think about these comebacks, but when people do see that, they are taken aback. But it's just God's grace, and He's allowed me to make a living in this business, and I'm very, very grateful for it. It's nothing that I've done, I assure you.
So what got you started? Obviously you were young when you started playing. Were you playing with a group when you were young and just kind of worked your way up to getting into studio work?
Well, my brother and I sang in churches all over the place. Anybody that would have us, we would sing. And my dad was sick a lot when we were kids. And so a lot of times we were responsible for whether we ate or not. We had to make a living for our family.
Yeah.
And so we did that. When I was 4 years old, we started. And then my brother once he got a little older, he could start singing too. We did that till we were teenagers. And then we came off the road, and things were a little bit better financially for our families then. I was in marching band, was band captain, and all those things. We were very competitive. I loved marching band. I loved we had a killer music program at our high school, and my two mentors in high school were my band director and my choral director. And they were very competitive because we were so good. We really had a strong program. I learned so much from those great men. And to be honest with you, I thought I wanted to teach because I wanted to be just like them. I
Yeah.
really did. They really made a huge impact on my life. And I still use things today that I learned from those two men. Derry
Wow.
Pilkington was our band director, and Paul Edmondson was our choral director. And I still have a great relationship with Mr. Ed.
Uh-huh.
We truly, he taught us way more about music. So did Mr. Pilkington, way more than just music. He taught us about life, and
Wow.
how to get through the tough times when things get really hard.
Yeah.
Just keep on persevering. And Mr. Ed was a great model of Jesus to us. We saw
That's
Jesus
awesome.
in him, and he was a great Christian man. And but to answer your question, I went to school. Well, let me go back. When I was 9, 10 years old, I remember hearing the group Alabama for the first time.
Yeah.
And I heard my home's in Alabama.
Uh-huh.
And they were from the small little town of Fort Payne,
Right.
which was about 45 minutes away from where I lived. And when I heard that song, I thought, you know what? If they can make it from the little town of Fort Payne, maybe I can too.
Yeah.
And so it gave me license to start dreaming.
Uh-huh.
Before that, I didn't know what I was going to do when I grew up. I knew I loved music with every fiber of my being. I played, I sang all the time. I listened to the radio all the time. I just couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
But when I heard My Home's in Alabama, and then they kept having hit after hit after hit, I think their first 21 singles went to #1, some
Yeah, I
crazy.
think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, now I know all those guys personally. I guess I could text Randy or Teddy and ask them how many of them. Not that they would remember.
Yeah.
They don't take themselves too seriously, to be honest with you. Uh, but when I heard that, it gave me license to dream. And
Yeah.
so I kept thinking, man, I want to, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I sure would love to do something in the business. I didn't know if I wanted to be an artist or a studio player or whatever. My brother and I had done a couple albums in Nashville when we were kids with Woody Beatty at Hilltop Recording Studio. Of course, now from time to time when I go back to work for an artist at Hilltop, boy,
Uh,
the memories just flood in.
oh yeah.
John Nicholson is the guy that runs it now.
I did my first recording with the Mid-South Boys in 1983 at Hilltop.
Hilltop has quite a history, and it really hadn't changed a whole lot.
No.
It's pretty retro still. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Pro Tools, and they've got a new piano, and of course they've got gear that's updated, but they still have a lot of those old microphones that
Yeah.
you just can't beat. And
No.
the way that it looks and feels and sounds is takes you back.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't mean to ramble, but went to Jacksonville State University after I graduated from high school. I went there for 3 years. My third year there, had a good friend who had a connection to the legendary producer in Muscle Shoals, Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson did so many acts, even did some stuff on the Rolling Stones, did stuff on Paul Simon, Bob Seger. He produced the Old Time Rock and Roll record.
Wow.
Many, many songs that y'all, people out in that are listening to us, watching us, would know that you might not know were recorded in the Shoals.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were recorded at Muscle Shoals Sound. A lot of them were recorded at Fame. Muscle Shoals has a huge history of recording hits, and Jimmy Johnson was a huge part of that. And this guy was able to get me in to see him. He said, man, I think if you played some of your songs for him, maybe he could help you in some way. And I thought, man, yeah, to play my songs for a legend like that would be pretty cool. So I went and had a meeting with him, and he said, "Well, play me a couple songs." And so I did, and then I just jammed for him a little bit, and he played guitar, and he's a really great stylist, you know,
Uh-huh.
great guitar player, but a stylist, you know. And he said, "Son," he said, "I'm just going to be real honest with you." He said, "You need to get out of that school you're in. It's a good school, but it's not the school for you."
Uh,
And I said, "Well, where would you recommend that I try and go?" He said, "Well, son, you belong in Nashville." He said, "You belong at Belmont." He said, "They can help you." He
yeah.
said, "You're probably the best where you are right now. You need to go somewhere where everybody is better than you." He said, "And in a couple of years, you'll be as good or better than them." He said, "That's the only way you can get better, is to be
Yeah.
around people who are better than you." And I said, "Well, Mr. Johnson, my family wouldn't be able to afford Belmont. I'm on scholarship now." And he said, "Son," he said, "I have a great relationship with the head of the music business department. I'll call and get you a scholarship audition." I said, "Well, sir, um, not to go against what you're saying, but those auditions just passed." I said, "I've always dreamed of going to Belmont, and I kind of follow it." And he said, "Well, that don't matter. I'll get you an audition." And
Huh.
I had several other questions. And finally, I think he got frustrated with me. He said, "Son, I don't believe you know who I am. I can get this done." And so anyway, one thing led to another. And I actually ended up, because of Mr. Johnson, getting a scholarship to Belmont
That's
and
awesome, man.
getting the connections that I needed, and went to Belmont. Greatest thing that happened about being at Belmont was meeting my wife, Kimberly. We met a few days after I arrived,
Yeah.
and I tell people all the time it was love at first sound. Truly, when I heard her talk, I thought to myself, I want to marry her. I'm going to marry her.
Wow.
And we ended up getting married 27 years ago. We have 3 children, and our
Awesome.
oldest is getting married in about a month. Samantha is marrying Jack Cottrell. And if the name Cottrell sounds familiar to any of our viewers, he's the son of Travis Cottrell, who's a great artist, incredible.
Travis,
Artist.
Travis
Yeah.
sang in my wedding.
Well, he's amazing. He and
Yeah.
Angela, we went to school with Travis at Belmont. Kimberly
Yeah.
and I did. And we've known him and Angela for, ever since we moved to Nashville. We were all at Two Rivers,
Yep.
And so the fact that Samantha and Jack are getting married, and of course, this COVID-19 has not done anything to help us.
No.
The kids have had to continually change their plans, and but the most important thing is they're going to be married, and it's going to be exciting. I have 2 other children. Parker is 20. He's a sophomore at Sanford University in Birmingham, and then
Wow.
my 12-year-old is Ashton, and he is a 6th grader at Christ Presbyterian Academy here in Nashville. So
Wow.
we're very blessed, and um, I arrived at Belmont, and that's how I got the Lee Greenwood connection. One of the teachers there knew him, and 2 days after I graduated, I got the gig with Lee. He
Wow.
actually ended up coming and hearing me at my senior recital, and everybody knew he was there but me because I couldn't see him in the audience.
And nobody
So
told you.
no, but I worked with Lee for several years, and Lee was kind of the catalyst for getting me in the studio scene because he had a publishing company. He realized he would tell you that he realized that in his words, I had something special,
Uh-huh.
and I'm so grateful to him for giving me an opportunity. And he and I are still great friends, and he's so proud of all the guys in his band that have gone on to do big things in the music business and just have gone on to be parents and family men. And Lee is a great family man as well, and he
Yeah.
was a great example to us and still is, and sings great. My
Oh,
goodness, I
yeah.
don't know how he does it. And
How old is
he's
he now?
well, he's 75, I think. And
75?
can you
You gotta be
imagine?
kidding me.
I called him. I heard him on the Opry about a year ago, and I remember I was on my bus and I called him, And I said, you know, you are living proof that God does have favorites, because you sing better than just about anybody I know.
Telling you, man.
In your 70s, that is just not
That's
fair.
incredible.
I
Yeah.
hear so many of these singers that I get a chance. You had Joyce Martin on uh,
Right.
not long ago, and I've gotten to produce the Martins, their last album, Still
Uh-huh.
Standing.
Yeah.
Boy, those Martins they're amazing too. All these great artists that I've had the chance to either produce or record with in some way. I just, you know, every day we go to work, or we used to before all this mess happened. But we go to work, and I'm still like, I never take the talent pool here in Nashville for granted. I'm always just dumbstruck by it,
Yeah.
especially when I'm producing something. But I'm always just dumbfounded by the the level of talent in this town.
Oh
And
man.
so to think that I have been a small part of it kind of still blows me away. But Lee was the catalyst for that.
Uh-huh.
It was word of mouth that kind of got me on some writing sessions, you know, demos, and one thing led to another. And I did that for a long time. I toured with a couple of different other artists. I had some time out on the road with Tanya Tucker, did some time with Trisha Yearwood, worked with the legendary Porter Wagner, played the Opry with him, and did a little traveling with him. And, you know,
Cool.
of course, we could spend a whole show talking about Porter Wagner.
Did you have
And
to wear one of the sparkly outfits like everybody
I
else
didn't
wore?
have to wear a sparkly outfit. No, those were just for him. Manuel, Manuel made those just for
Yeah.
Porter. And Porter used to say it was the best diet plan going, because if you spent $20,000 on a suit, you weren't going to gain any weight. Everybody asked him how he would stay so
He was
thin.
always so slim. Yeah.
Yeah, the thin man from West Plains. But man, we had so many fun times,
Yeah.
memorable times, and he was such an important part of my life. But one thing led to another, and I kept working my way up and doing whatever I could to stay at home once I came off the road.
Yeah.
And I finally got you. You mentioned Pig. Uh, he flew my flag really high, man. He was responsible for me being on that Alan Jackson album. He was not feeling well,
Oh wow.
and he told them. Matter of fact, he said in our AFM, our Musicians Union magazine, they did an interview with him shortly before all that, and they asked him who the next Pig Robbins was going to be, the next guy who would, you know, be on, you know, classic records and have a career that would span many years.
Yeah.
And he said me. He said, well, I think the next guy is Gordon Mote. And
Wow.
he was such a huge supporter of mine. And so because of that, they had always used Pig, and they called me. And that album, I had played on a few masters before that. Guys like Mark Wills,
Uh-huh.
who had a couple of hits on the record I played on. Rodney Atkins was about to
Yeah.
break, and I'd been working with him. But the Alan Jackson thing changed the trajectory of my career. I could go back to 4 or 5 things that have happened in my life that have changed the trajectory of my path. And that was definitely one, because that album had 4 number one singles. It sold 5 million albums, and my phone started ringing.
Oh.
Not just because I was on that album, but people were hearing more demos, and my name was becoming a little bit more recognizable. Scott Hendricks was another guy that made a huge impact on my career, because he started hiring me. And of course, he was huge at that time. He still is, you know, we
Yeah.
still do Dan and Shay. We did that together.
Yeah.
Blake Shelton, all these, you know, he's still huge in the business, and our relationship has spanned many, many years. But he was the first guy to give me license to do it like I would do it. Most all those other guys at that time were hiring me because I could sound like Pig, or I could sound like Steve Nathan, or I could sound like Matt Rollins, or
Yeah.
you know, you name. I could kind of be a parrot, imitate what they wanted.
Uh-huh.
But I remember asking Scott, "What kind of thing do you want on this song, Scott?" And he said, "Man, I don't know. Just do whatever Gordo would do." So I had to figure out, well, what is it that I do?
Yeah.
And up until that point, I had been trying to sound like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious effort from that moment on to figure out, okay, what is my heart?
Right.
What is, you know, and I had been influenced. You talk about influences. We all have been influenced by so many different things. I loved everything from the big band stuff, you know, the Rat Pack, you know.
Yeah.
I loved people all in that genre, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, you know,
Hmm.
the horn players like Maynard Ferguson and Wynton Marsalis, and groups like Spiral Gyre, all the jazz. I loved all that stuff. I loved pop, you know, probably the Total 4 record was probably one of the
Oh,
most influential albums in my life.
oh
Chicago
yeah.
17, you know, those things. David Foster
Yep.
was a huge influence, still is, you know. But I loved some of the old classic country, not some of it, I loved it all, you know. I
Hmm.
remember those great intros that Pig played, you know, 14 Karat Mind, Gene
Oh
Watts,
yeah. Yeah.
Behind Closed Doors, you know, Charlie Rich.
Yes.
Uh, Pig invited me to play at his Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame induction. And I played with Crystal, Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, which is another iconic intro that he
Oh
came up
yeah.
with.
Definitely.
And so I started trying to figure out, okay, what does Gordon do? You
So
know,
you're
and so
naming off all these songs that have piano intros.
yeah, and that was Pig, you know, and
Yeah.
so I knew that in order to have some staying power, I needed to make my mark. Well,
Yeah.
fortunately for me, some of the first really big records I was on were the Rascal Flatts records that had piano intros.
Yeah.
And so I got to kind of find a niche and make a name, and people started calling me because I could come up with intros, I could come up with hooks,
Uh-huh.
you know, I could come up with things that made the song recognizable from, you know, the very first note. And really, in order to have a hit, you kind of have to have that, whether it's a guitar riff. I mean, when you hear, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, that's
Chattahoochee.
Chattahoochee,
Yeah, that's right.
that's Grant Mason,
Yep. Oh yeah.
you know, Chattahoochee's probably, you know, is a good song, but if it didn't have Brent's intro, it might
Exactly.
not be the iconic song that it is.
That's true.
So musicians play a huge part in the careers of these artists, and the first ones that would tell you that would be the artist and the
Yeah.
producers.
Oh
We
yeah.
musicians are held in high esteem in this town, but you got to earn it. And so I wanted to make sure, I felt like every day I needed to prove that I needed to be there. And guys like Dan Huff, Dan
Yeah.
changed the trajectory of my career by just talking to me one day about how to approach the way I looked at a song. He started asking me, you know, when you were a teenager, what songs did your friends sit down at the piano and play? He said, now I can't ask you what you played because you were a prodigy, so you don't count, you know. And Dan was a prodigy too, so he understood that, and he understood, you know, that we were probably a little ahead of the curve, not because of what we'd done, but because of the gift that God had given us.
Yeah.
Dan grew up, you know, Ron Huff was his father. Ron was an incredible arranger. Um, you know, what a musical mind Ron Huff was.
Yeah.
But Dan said, what were those songs? And so I started naming these songs that were easy to play, like, you know, like Don't Stop Believing, Journey, or
Yeah.
Home Sweet Home, Motley Crue, or, you know, all the Journey songs,
Oh
Faithfully,
yeah. Yeah.
Open Arms, Jonathan Cain, um, just great at that. And I actually got to talk to him about that and all those intros and just his career. He's a sweet, sweet man, lives here in Nashville now. But Dan said, that's what you need to do. You need to focus on trying to find something that sets it apart, but something a 13-year-old hears and
Uh-huh.
thinks he can play.
Huh.
And that changed everything for me,
Yeah.
because then my career went into overdrive because I looked at it so much differently. And I'm proud of what I did before that. But if you listen to what I did after that, it became much more simple when it needed to be simple.
Yeah.
And it became even more hooky. And, you know, I'm just so grateful for guys like a Dan Huff, like a Frank Rogers, a Scott Hendricks,
Yeah.
those guys who have been very special friends to me, and others, Mark Bright,
Yeah.
Kyle Lenning, you know, Keith Stegall, all these legendary producers. And of course, there's a new batch of producers now, but those guys I just mentioned are still doing it whenever they want to. and they still have the utmost respect from musicians and artists and the radio community, the label community. But when those guys will pull you aside and tell you something that makes a huge difference that they know can help you, if you're willing to listen, you can learn so much, not just from producers, but from fellow musicians. And now I'm one of the older guys, you know, I'm not as old as some, but I'll be 50 this year. I'm not the young guy anymore, but
Right.
now, you know, I have that opportunity as well to maybe help some of the younger ones and give them maybe a word of encouragement, or maybe a word of wisdom, or maybe something that I've learned over the years that will help them. You know, we're all in this together,
Sure.
and so I've had a really good run. I don't want it to all end today, but if
No.
it were to end today, I would have nothing to complain about, because I
Right.
have truly been in the studio with some of the biggest and greatest icons in country music and pop music and gospel,
Yeah.
Christian music, black gospel, you name it. God has allowed me to do it, and but I hope there's a whole lot more yet to come,
Oh,
because I'm not ready to
I'm
be
sure there
done.
is.
My kids still need to get through school, so I can't retire yet.
You need more work.
That's exactly right.
I'm
You
sure
know,
you'll get. You know, one thing that I've learned being around some guys that do studio work, that they never get stale, and they never just kind of settle. You know,
no,
they're always working on their craft.
yes, you have to, because you know the young ones are coming, and but things keep changing. You
Yeah,
know, so
music
we have to
changes. Yeah,
change, and we have to figure out, okay, what's the next thing? How can I
right.
be part of the recipe?
Yeah,
You know, if you get stale, then your phone stops ringing
that's true.
and you're just living in the past.
Yeah,
I don't want to be that guy. You know, I want to be the guy that is still making it happen. And you know, so you can't just rest on what you have been able to do.
no,
You know, so many people know way more about my career than I do, because I kind of do it and then move on to the next thing.
yeah,
And a lot of people that I record with in the studio don't even know I'm an artist. You know, they have no idea.
yeah,
And, you know, until they see my name on the Grammy ballot, you know, and they're like,
yeah,
holy cow, we didn't know you sang and you're up for a Grammy, you
yeah,
know. So, you know, it's, you just go to work, put your head down, go to work every day,
yeah,
do your best. I tell these young students, I go to and speak at Belmont or wherever they ask me to come speak. And I always tell these kids, you know, music is not who we are, it's what we do.
yeah.
Don't ever let it be who you are, because one of these days the phone will stop ringing,
Oh
and
yeah,
that'll be hard.
yep,
But you don't want music to be who you are. Let it be what you do.
right.
Let who you are be the best husband you can be, the best dad you can be, the best Christian friend you can be. Um, you know, that is who I want to be. What I want to be is a great, you know, try to be the best musician, producer, singer,
Yeah,
songwriter, whatever. And who I am is wrapped up in that.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, the who is more important than the what. And I really feel strongly about that. And I'm grateful for my family that supports me, and I'm grateful for true friends. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a whole lot of friends because we stay busy and
yeah,
all that. But the friends that I do have are true blue, and I know where I stand with them. They're just real. And if you've been around me any length of time, you know that I'm just a goofball all the time. I'm just real. I'm as honest to a fault. I'm honest.
yeah,
And whether I'm producing or playing or singing, I'm just me all the time. And I have
yeah.
found that's the easiest thing to be, is just be yourself.
Well, I haven't. I think this is the first time I've actually just talked to you before. I've known you, and you said you've known me, but we've never
Yeah.
just really just sat around and hung out or anything. But I feel like I've known you for a long time, just
Well,
talking with you, and
I
you're just a
appreciate that.
you're real easy to talk with, and you've got a passion, you got a heart. You love your family. I do too. I've got 5 kids, and we travel, we sing, and the Lord's blessed me. Just like, when you said uh, who and the what, the difference in those two things, I've never heard it really put like that. But people do get wrapped up in who they think they are or who they want to be, and that should be the what, not the who.
Yeah, the best thing to have is a family that'll keep you humble.
Exactly.
Because you go to work and everybody tells you how great you are,
Yeah.
and I've been very fortunate to play on a whole lot of number ones, and
Yeah.
as a producer, we've won a Dove Award last year, and
Yeah.
all this crazy stuff that nobody really cares about. It helps you maybe get the next job, and I
Yeah.
always going to try and do my best. But it doesn't matter how many times, this year was my 18th time to be nominated for the ACMs, and
Yeah.
won it a couple of times. And when my son uh, texted me to say congratulations, he said, "How many times have you been nominated?" And I said, "Well, this is my 18th time." And he texted me back and he said, "How many times you actually won, Dad?" And I said, "Well, I've only won it twice." He texted me back and he said, "Dad, that's a horrible percentage." So, but it doesn't matter how many
Yeah.
awards you win or how many things, you still come home and take the trash out. So
Yeah. I know.
um,
I,
I'm great.
I did all my great accomplishments, I guess you could say, back when I was in my 20s, early 30s with Mid South, and now my kids are starting to grow up, and sometimes I'll go back and play some old videos of us, and show them when we won a Dove Award, and we was up for a Grammy in '92 and all that. They're like, so.
Right. Yeah. Well, I took my kids to the Grammys last year, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And my Love, Love, Love album was up for Album of the Year in the Gospel Roots category. And um, the Martin's record that I produced was also up.
Yeah.
And something else I did, I can't remember. And that's horrible. But um, anyway, we didn't win, and that was fine. We still had a great time. Jason Crabb
Yeah.
won it that year.
Yeah.
And his album that he did with Jay DeMarcus is just phenomenal. Jason is an incredible talent.
He is.
And my son in the airport the next day, he said, "Dad, we need to get you a T-shirt that says 5-time Grammy loser." And
Oh man.
he is just so dry. His humor is so dry, and it just makes me laugh because I thought about it on the plane. I thought, you know what? I watched the Grammys when I was a kid, and I dreamed of meeting some of those people.
Yeah.
Never thought I would play for them. Never thought I'd work on anything. A bunch of stuff that I've played on have won Grammys over the years. But did I ever think I would actually be in the audience? Uh, B, did I ever think I would actually be up for a Grammy?
Yeah.
Or any of those crazy awards, those shows we used to watch when we were kids? Well, the answer to that is no, absolutely not.
I
I
never did
never
either.
dreamed
No.
that I would be where I am today. So, man, everything from here is a bonus.
Yeah.
You hear, I used to hear people say, it's such an honor just to be nominated. And I thought, that is a bunch of crap. They want to win the award.
Well, sure
And
you
winning
do.
is fun. Winning is fun. But I got to be honest with you. The biggest excitement for me is just being nominated, because if you're in the top 5 and the industry recognizes your album, well, first of all, what it does, Bobby, is it means that people are listening to it.
Right.
And if they're listening to it, they're getting the message of hope.
Exactly.
They're getting the message of Christ, who's living in me. And they're getting a positive message. Every song is an encouraging song. Some of them are ballads, some of them are up tempo, some of them are fun, some are more serious. But they all, the common denominator is the gospel.
Right.
And presented in different ways.
Yeah.
But that's the most important thing when you are nominated, or your album or something is nominated. It just means people are listening. They're paying attention. And if you get paying attention to the message, that's what you want.
Exactly. Talking about the Grammys, back in '92, we were nominated for I think it was Gospel Album of the Year, and we were it was in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, and before we went to the award show, we were just kind of sightseeing around New York City and walking
Oh yeah.
around, and this guy walks up to us and he said, "Hey, are y'all going to the Grammys tonight?" We said, "Well, yeah, yeah." He said, "I'll give you $1,000 for per ticket. Whatever you got, I'll give you $1,000 per ticket." We're looking at each other like, because we were broke back then. We didn't have any money. It
Yeah.
was like, oh man, if we weren't up for an award, I might take you up on that. So we ended up going, and guess who we lost to?
Who?
Gaither Vocal Band.
Ah, well, I'll tell you what, even today, I probably would have taken that $1,000 and let my family go because
Man, I don't know.
I hate sitting through those shows, but I'm all
I did
honored to.
too. I couldn't wait to get out. Actually, we left early. I think Barbara Streisand was ending the show. We just kind of walked out and left on that one. But if looking back on it now, I'm like, going through all that and not winning, I probably would have took that $1,000. But just to have
Well,
that experience, was
the great thing about taking the kids, the Grammys were in Los Angeles, and so they got to have their first In-N-Out burger. And they'd
yeah,
heard Dad talk about it, but they'd never had one. And so that was one of the highlights of their trip. And I got to sneak them into the Grammy party. I was
oh
on the
yeah,
board of the Recording Academy, and I was able to sneak the kids. Kimberly and I were going to the party, and I was able to, because of a couple of buddies of mine, I was able to kind of sneak them in, and nobody cared, and it was great. And they got to kind of see some of the pomp and circumstance of the
yeah,
Grammys, and that's something they'll always remember.
oh yeah,
And so it's really all about making memories
exactly,
with your family when it's something like that, because you never know if it's going to be your last one.
right,
You never, all of those are just great moments to make special memories. So I'm
they are,
grateful for every opportunity I've had. The kids have gotten to meet lots of people they wanted to meet because of what their dad does for a
right,
living.
right,
And, the cool thing is, all those great artists are so nice families, and they're just normal people. A lot
oh
of them,
yeah,
we text back and forth, and I mean, people look at them as, you know, these big things, but we're all just normal people. And, I guess maybe before I got in the business, I would have done the same thing. But I hadn't worked with many people that I thought were not very nice. Pretty much everybody I've ever worked with, whether it's a concert promoter or an artist or a producer or
yeah.
whoever, has always been pretty fantastic. And
That's
so,
good. That's
and
really
the
good.
Nashville community really does come together in times
Yeah,
of need.
yeah, they do.
Um, with this coronavirus thing, the community is really kind of banded together, and we're just all trying to help each other. And with the tornadoes that came through right before
Yeah,
this pandemic, we were kind of already in a place where we were trying to, that's my dog. We were already in a place where we're trying to, try to get back on our feet a little bit. This
yeah,
town has been devastated
it
by, as
has.
many cities have been,
Yeah.
but the economy here in Nashville, because it's so entertainment driven,
Hmm.
the economy has been hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But we're Americans, and um, I feel like, not to be too political, but I feel like we as Americans, now is the time, especially as Christian Americans, now is the
Right.
time that we need to stand up for those freedoms,
That's right.
because little by little they're being taken away from us.
You're absolutely
And
right.
if you don't think that, then you've been under a rock.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're pushing us as far as they can, just to
They sure
see
are. They sure
what
are.
we'll do and what we'll put up with.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to be safe, and we all need to use good sense.
Yeah.
But uh, I think it's time to get back to work,
I think
and
so
I
too.
think it's time to get things moving. I know a lot of people have been very affected by this, and I think there are certain people who need to stay home when
Yeah.
when it's flu season, or when there's some type of sickness and your immune system is subject to, is maybe not up to par. I
Right.
think not just with COVID-19, but I think there are a lot of times when people need to use good sense and stay home.
That's true.
But the cure is worse than the problem now.
Yeah.
And the economy has got to get back on its feet,
Gotta get
or
going.
we'll all be sick because we don't have a home to live in.
That's exactly right. You got
And
that right.
so, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to make a political statement at all, because I try from the platform or wherever else, I try to be all about Jesus, and because he is in control. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's all up to him. This has not taken him by surprise
Oh no,
in any way.
not at all.
But we need to be Americans, and we need to stand up for those freedoms that that the Constitution was built on, and this country was built on. And I'm so grateful that the state of Tennessee has a governor who loves the Lord, and I
Yeah.
know he's under a tremendous amount of pressure.
Oh, I know it.
But I think we need to. It's tough when the mayor of Nashville and the governor of the state of Tennessee don't see eye to eye on what should be open and what should be closed.
Right.
So I can only imagine the pressure that must be on both of those men.
I'm
And
sure.
they've all got people in their ear telling them what they should and shouldn't do, and trying to draw party lines. And so we need to just be in prayer for our leaders.
Pray for our leaders. That's for sure.
That their ears will be open to the Holy Spirit, and their hearts will be open, and that we can get things going in a positive direction again, because America needs to get back to work. And
Yeah.
I have such a heart of love and compassion for those people who have lost loved ones through this COVID-19. It's a very serious thing,
Yeah.
and it's very unfortunate. And of course, I have my own theories about how that came to be.
Yeah.
But whether it's just wherever it came from, we've had to deal with it. And I think our leaders are doing the very best that they can. But we as Americans have to take what's ours as well. We have to make sure that our freedoms are fought for, and we continue to say to our leaders, this is still a free country. We are not under socialism. We're not under. This is still a free country. This is not a communist country. You don't tell us where to be and what time to be there. We have the freedom to have good sense.
Yeah.
And so I feel very strongly about that, as you can't tell.
I can tell.
I think you pray about who to vote for, and that's a personal issue. And
right.
I don't talk about politics, but whether you're a conservative or a liberal or somewhere in between, you want this country to get back to work, because if they keep giving us money and keep bailing us out, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will never be able to pay the bill.
Oh, they're not going to be able to do it. That's true. That is true.
Hey, you ever thought about God's all we need?
You ever thought running for mayor of Nashville?
You know what? I've never been politically driven, but last night after I heard that the Davidson County property taxes may go up 30%, I sure consider it.
I think you ought to, man. I'd
well,
vote for you.
I don't know how a city like Nashville has been so decimated, and many counties in the state of Tennessee depend on entertainment. I know. Think of Knoxville and Sevierville and Pigeon Forge, that area. I think of Williamson County, Davidson County. I think of Memphis. So much of the state of Tennessee is driven by entertainment.
Exactly.
And, but you've got, the mayor talking about the budget, and I know the budget's been decimated. Yes, I totally do. But the working people of Nashville are going to be asked to pay 31%. But that's something that's on the table, 31% more in property taxes. They've not been allowed to work, and they're doing everything they can not to go under. And you're asking them to pay, 30% more.
There's no way.
There's just no way. And so we just need a touch from God. We need a mighty move of God, because this is something that I don't think any man knows how to weather. And but I am grateful that our governor loves the Lord, and I believe that he is a mighty man of God who was put here at just the right time.
I think so too.
And so I'm grateful for Governor Lee and Maria and their great witness. They were at the Beyond Our Walls gathering that our church was a big part of, Grace Chapel. Our church was a part of Sunday night. And our pastor, Steve Berger, got a bunch of wonderful pastors together. And it was just a wonderful night to, in our cars, tooting horns never sounded so good. But just a night for all of Williamson County, Davidson County, surrounding areas, just to get together and worship and say, you cannot take away our freedom to worship, our freedom for professing and pronouncing that God is still God. And, you know, we are still one nation under God. So that was
Amen.
a great event. And Governor Lee was he had some great remarks, and they were very heartfelt. And so whatever your political bend is, if you're a Christian, you should be very grateful that you know that Bill Lee is also a man of
Wow.
God.
I know I am sure. Gordon, this has been a joy, man, to have you on here. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, I appreciate, and both of us may get some hate mail because of my little rant here for the last 5 minutes, but
I don't think so.
But it's been great to be on with you. You know, I'm so grateful for living in this country. As bad as things are, I'm still grateful to.
It's still the greatest country.
He would say, proud to be an American.
Amen. That's
I'm
right.
grateful for our patriots, our military who continue to fight for our freedoms and the freedoms of other countries. And I just don't want to take the men and women who are on the front lines, our doctors and nurses and health workers and all the people who are serving us in the grocery stores and all the people who are making sure that Americans have what they need when they need it in a timely manner. And so if I could just leave you with a thought, make sure you thank those people, make sure you support those people, make sure you try to have more patience than normal, and make sure that, I have a ministry that's struggling just like so many ministries are struggling right now.
Right.
But what I would encourage you to do is pray for all those people that have encouraged you over the years. We could certainly use it. We're all going through a tough time, but make sure that you continue to tithe to your churches, because I know our church and many other churches are doing great things in the community that we have no idea about. I know our church is feeding 500 families right now on a daily basis.
That's
Many
awesome.
of those children, you know, they getting school. They're income families, and One Generation Away is a great organization. But there are many great organizations that are feeding folks and taking care of folks and helping folks with their house payment or this or that. So I would just encourage you to make sure you tithe.
Amen.
Yeah, for us, our pastors need your prayers. They are standing in the gap for us. This is a time, as our pastor says, it's a time to take new territory. We don't want to, our series that he does every weekday morning, Steve Berger, on his Facebook public figure page, and it's called Promises, Not Panic. And at 7 o'clock Central Time, every weekday morning, he goes on for about 20 minutes and he does a teaching and just encourages people. And I have found it to be very encouraging. And I'll be honest with you, I have gone through a lot of moments of fearfulness and discouragement because of just not knowing. But the one thing I do know is God is still God. And that's what we have to put our trust in. And so I just encourage all of you, even when you are feeling fearful, just go to the one who has this all under control. There's a song that's very popular right now, and one of the lyrics is, even when we don't see it, he's working. Even when we don't feel it, he's working. He never stops working.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that truth. And it has been great to be on with you, and I hope your Facebook, your show continues to go well and you keep getting more and more people watching and listening. And thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for having me on.
Well, it certainly helps by having people like you on to help me out, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I don't know. Your ratings may go way down after this.
Oh, no, 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 no. They're going to go
Uh,
way up after
oh,
this one
God.
right here, man.
Well, you sure had some good people on, and so I'm grateful that you would ask me to do it, and I hope all the best for you and your family
I
and
appreciate
all
it.
the folks watching and listening out there. I wish you, Kimberly, and I wish you only the best, and may the Lord bless you and keep you, make His face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace. In
Amen.
Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate